me clean up myself a little bit here.
Doke.
There we go. Much better. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. That's right, everybody. I'm back. I was gone, but I am indeed back. Peach Bowl preview is coming at you real soon, as in this episode. You're going to get some quick thoughts on me on the 2024 recruiting class, Tom Allen, who's even playing in the Peach Bowl, who's coaching in the Peach Bowl, all that and a lot more. We'll wrap up the show with your fan questions, our bold predictions, and our score predictions. Thank you for being here. Let's get into the show, everybody. As always, make sure you've liked the video on YouTube and you've subscribed wherever you're listening to this podcast. Thank you. Give myself just a little bit more wiggle room up there. Shawn, I'm going to bring you down just a little bit. It was set up for PSU Dylan. All right. That gets us kind of close. We'll do this thing live. Let me get a sip of water here.
Do it live.
We'll do it live. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Corey Lestochi. With me, as always, the great Shawn Kane. How are you doing today, Shawn?
Feeling festive. Christmas was yesterday. It was a very nice Christmas. Christmas Eve was a couple nights before. I'm sure most of you watched my Dolphins. They were victorious over the Dallas Cowboys. It was a nice game to watch, and stressful game to watch, but it was a nice ending. And now I'm making the transition from feeling festive to feeling peachy. How are you, Corey? How are you feeling? You survived.
Yeah, I'm feeling better. I would say I'd put myself around 95% or so. Haven't really kind of dabbled back into the boozing. Probably the least amount of boozing I've done over a Christmas in quite some time. Just haven't really been feeling up for that challenge. But voice is pretty much there. Still have a lingering cough, but otherwise I'm feeling great. You and Dylan did a fantastic job last week on the recruiting show, so I think PSU Dylan for filling in for me there. You guys did an excellent job, and I thought maybe I could have gone, and I'm very glad that I didn't, because I felt as that show progressed, I was just behind the scenes. I was feeling worse and worse. So big time fill-in by Dylan there, and you guys did an excellent job.
Appreciate it. Yeah, Dylan was very kind of him to come on, especially on we had planned for him to come on, but not in the capacity that he was on, where he was one of the co-hosts. But he did a great job, rolled right with the punches, and it was nice having him on. Of course, we missed you, though. And it was my first time kind of in being the facilitator. I had a previous podcast where I was solo, but it was the first time I've ever done it that way before, and I felt like I did all right. First time doing it, so and thankful for Corey behind the scenes as well, helping us with he produced the whole thing still from his deathbed.
No, yeah, he did a fantastic job. Every once in a while, you got to step into that point guard role, and you did that. So, yeah, feeling better. Had a good Christmas. Wasn't anything crazy. Unfortunately, she had to work a little bit, so she had to work quite a bit actually, which is the nature of the beast. But we're gonna move on and have a good. I love this little week in between Christmas and New Year's. Technically going to be on the clock. I know you were on the clock today, but I'll be back on the clock starting tomorrow. But because everyone else has taken so much PTO, I haven't looked at the list of things I need to do this week, but it's a pretty short list. So I think I'm going to be able to survive this week without having to work too hard.
Well, that's good for you. Unfortunately, people always call the place where I work So I'm always getting calls, and yeah, what are you gonna do? Keeps me busy and keeps me employed. But we have stuff to get to, and there
We
was a
do.
lot that went out of the past week, and there's a lot to dig into. And hey, we got a game Saturday.
Yeah, that's the best part is there's Penn State football for the final time in 2023. But we have Penn State football this week. If you haven't yet, make sure to go get your Feeling Peachy. Ooh, that was a bad example. We are feeling. Can I get all of it? Peachy.
There we go.
Make sure to get your We Are Feeling Peachy shirts in the Mercury store. Management had a brief conversation with management. This might have been before Christmas. The We Are Peachy shirts, Feeling Peachy shirts are flying off the racks. So that's good to see. Keep buying them. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they got some sort of, maybe the promotion's over, but they're doing something. If you buy a shirt, you're automatically entered to win something else. I forget what the prize was, but all you have to do is buy a shirt. You don't have to do anything else, and it'll already enroll you. If you buy one shirt, you get one entry. You buy two shirts, you get another. Honestly, I don't know if that wrapped up or not, but I don't think it has. So make sure to go snag one if you can. Otherwise, Shawn, it's been nice to watch the bowl game so far. I haven't been necessarily like sitting down and 100% focused on them. Saw Minnesota won today in a close game against Bowling Green. Big Ten is now officially 1-0. But the bowl pick'em is off and running.
2-0.
2-0. Oh yeah, Northwestern beat Utah. I forgot about that. Yeah, that was a good win for Northwestern and David Braun. So, you're right, 2-0, and in the hardcore PSUFB bowl pick'em, people are gonna claim collusion, but I think I'm off and running with the lead. And it's early, but I'm off and running with the lead there. So things are looking up around here, Shawn.
I heard a report that Cory was talking to some Russians and there may be some collusion going on here. But
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, bowl week is so funny because it feels like it starts off very slow, and then there are just games on constantly. And
Right. Like now, like tomorrow. I think there's like 4 games tomorrow.
Right.
And like, no disrespect to a lot of the games so far, but the games are actually going to be like good games from here on out. Like, there's been some good ones, but all the teams that play from here on out, you've heard of for the most part. And like that makes a difference. So I know we've got, I think Oklahoma State, Texas, somebody tomorrow night. I don't know which Texas that is. Did A&M make a bowl game? I don't think they did they?
No, I don't think so.
Who's Oklahoma State playing?
I have no idea.
Should I find out real quick? I actually have it up. I can tell you in 2 seconds. Oh, they do play A&M.
Oh.
Yep, they do. A&M went 7-5.
Who's coaching them?
Nobody. They have no coaches. They're just going to go out there and wheel and deal it. You have Louisville, USC tomorrow. You have North Carolina, West Virginia tomorrow, and you have Virginia Tech, Tulane tomorrow. So quite a bit of good games.
Question for you.
Yeah, probably have an answer.
How do you think we touched on I touched on this last week with Dylan. How do you think you fix the bowl games? Because after this year, obviously the playoff expands, and we're already kind of seeing it this year. Like, there's so many teams that just don't have players or coaches. Like, it doesn't feel like it's ever been this way before. So what would you say is needed to fix this, or does it need to be fixed?
I'm actually okay with that. I actually think the bowl games are getting more exciting because if you're willing to transition your mind from the bowl games were meaningful to now the bowl games, in my opinion, unless you're in the playoff, it's really the beginning of the 2024 season. So I'm looking at this. I think Mac Brown said this the other day with North Carolina. Like, this is an opportunity for a lot of young guys to get some serious reps that haven't been able to get on the field very much. This is a great opportunity for them to really jumpstart their way into the 2024 season. I mean, you have a good bowl game. You go right into winter workouts. You have a good spring practice. Like, it all starts building off of right now. So if you look at it in that perspective, I think it's good. But if you're still looking at it with the, with the previous way things were done and the bowl games mattering for that current season, well, that's just not true. I do want to give a shout out to Thomas Moulay. He says, and I quote, "These guys suck." So appreciate you, Thomas, coming out on Boxing Day, fighting up, just throwing some punches. So we appreciate that, Thomas.
Which guys?
Us.
Oh, well, thanks, man.
Yeah. Guess he got his presents for this year, and he said, "I have 365 days before I have to worry about coal in my stocking. So I'm just going to start just ripping all of the insults as much as I can right off the bat."
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, as far as the Bulls go, I mean, honestly, Corey, did the Alamo Bowl ever mean more? I just don't think it did.
Not as much as the SEC, I can tell you that.
Like the Rose Bowl, the Peach Bowl. Okay, at one time they probably did mean more. Rose Bowl without being in the playoff, they probably did mean more, and I do concede that. But sometimes like people talk about the bowl so nostalgically, and I'm like, nah, I remember the BCS era. I don't remember before the BCS, but in the BCS era, if you didn't make a BCS bowl, you were just kind of hoping for a New Year's Day bowl. But even that, you weren't like, oh, we need to make the Outback Bowl or the Capital One Bowl at the time. It really wasn't that way. There wasn't really much of a difference between making the Holiday Bowl and making the Citrus Bowl or the Capital One Bowl or whatever. So I don't know. I think nostalgia is a funny thing. I'll just put it that way.
I just think it's really more about the college football playoff and how much that has garnered all the attention. And so I don't think the bowl games were ever necessarily special, but now that there's a focus on the playoff specifically, everything else is obviously devalued. And maybe it wasn't devalued to some before, but now it is, and that's where their hiccup is. But the bottom line is nothing's really changed. You could honestly argue more that affects the bowl games more is a transfer portal. Because now that people are trying to get a leg up in the transfer portal before, that is now devalued bowl games even more. Because basically players and coaches who have also switched schools before their bowl games, they basically told you that the bowl games don't matter anymore. The Florida State quarterback, the original backup quarterback to Travis, he jumped in a portal today, and he literally cited it. He said, well, the players are taking new positions. The coaches are taking new jobs. By waiting to enter the transfer portal, I'm actually hurting my chances for next year. So I don't blame them one bit. That is just the way it is. There's a couple ways to fix that. Don't open the transfer portal until after the bowl games. Don't let coaches resign until after bowl games without a penalty and or take other jobs. But until that happens, which it won't because of where early signing day is, you are going to get players and coaches alike that don't care about bowl games. And if they don't, why would we? So.
Well, you brought up an interesting point with the early signing day. And I was somebody who wanted the early signing day initially. Too. But the more time has gone on, I think it starts to cause more problems than it's worth for a couple of reasons. Number one, the reason the coaches leave right after the season ends is for the early signing day because they want to get their class, which honestly is understandable. Like back in the day, coaches used to coach the bowl game if they took another job. They would still, a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times they'd still stay on for the bowl game. And that just never happens anymore, ever. And not even the coordinators stay behind because that was another thing that happened. Sometimes the coach would leave, but the coordinator would stay behind, even if he was following the coach. And that just isn't a thing anymore. And now the way the calendar is setting up, the early signing day is going to be just a few days before the first set of playoff games. And I just don't think either the early signing day has to be moved to right after the BCS, or not the BCS title game, the national championship game, or you just have it in February. There is no early signing day like it always was. And I think now it's got to the point where the cons for the early signing day have outweighed the pros.
Yeah, with the playoff expansion, that's going to make things difficult. I would honestly make early signing day before the season starts. Move it all the way up to August. I mean, all of the recruiting really happens in April, May, June, July, August right now. Like that's Penn State especially put together almost their entire 2024 class in the summer and a couple in the
Yeah.
spring, and then Cooper Cousins has been there forever. But for the most part, a lot of that happened in the summer. If you move the early signing day all the way up to August, those kids can sign. They can then play their high school season without having to worry about anything. And the coaches also can then coach the entire season, don't have to worry about the 2024 class. They go into the playoff, they don't have to worry about last second early signing day. It's all done. And then you have your final signing day still same point in February to pick up any more of the stragglers.
A lot of the coaches, I think where you're going to run into a problem there, a lot of the coaches won't want to do that because there are coaches that are going to want to pull scholarships in the middle of their recruits senior years, and that's just the reality. That's something that happens, and it doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. I don't really like it, but like just like a kid, I don't think a kid should commit until he's 110,000% sure that he's going to a school. A coach has more of a responsibility not to give a kid an offer, like a committable offer, before he knows that he wants him on the team. So I think that's where you'd have a lot of pushback.
You can't have it both ways. You can't say
Right.
you want to play limbo to the last second and then also complain that it's all happening at once, right? You can't have it both ways.
Yeah, that's why I think they may just eliminate it outright. So I think they're going to do something though, because these they do not want this to continue. Like I said, I kind of get it, and I do think the pros could outweigh the cons outweigh the pros at this point with where it's at.
Yeah, we can talk more about that in the offseason.
Yeah, good offseason discussion.
So Penn State hires Tom Allen. Don't know if I've spoken on the pod since then. Just wanted to say I like the hire from an energy standpoint. Be very curious to see as far as the scheme and how much it changes. He's a 4-2-5 guy. Is that really going to change much with how Penn State does things? Probably not, since Penn State was so multiple on defense anyway. But I think from an energy perspective, from a previous head coach perspective, I think it's a perfect fit. And it sounds like Tom Allen is pretty happy being a defensive coordinator again. I don't think he is probably going to rush back into becoming a head coach. So it seems like he's ready to go back to coaching football, which is something you don't really get to do as the head coach. So he won't be the defensive coordinator for the Peach Bowl. He'll be kind of doing the same thing that Andy Kotelnicki will be doing. And that will be kind of observing, seeing how the operations work, making notes about what he sees on the field and what he likes and doesn't like, which is a great opportunity for both of the coordinators. Shout out to Lee on YouTube. He says, hello, guys. Sorry I came in late. Hope everyone had a good Christmas. Thank you, Lee. We did. So appreciate you being here. Any final thoughts on the 2024 class and or the new offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, or defensive coordinator Tom Allen?
Yeah, with Tom Allen, I mean, he just seemed like Manny always gave off the aura of a head coach, and Tom Allen, even though he just was a head coach, gives off the aura of a defensive coordinator and high energy guy. He always did, even when he was at Indiana. Just high energy, get after the ball. Like he said, he's going to give some great pregame speeches, and he talks a lot about, like you touched on, getting back to coaching and actually coaching football, coaching linebackers, which he will be. That'll be a role that he will assume as well as linebackers coach. And when you're the head coach, I think I heard Corey Geiger on his show once do a little segment about this. About 10% of your job is actually coaching football, like actually game planning, coaching guys up, and everything. And there's so many other things going on. You have to wear so many different hats, especially in the era of NIL. and transfer portal. You have to recruit your future players, and then you got to recruit your current players. So, and there's so much going on. And a guy like Tom Allen was probably not that disappointed that he was canned, because first off, you get a big paycheck from from Indiana University. You get to go do your passion, which is coaching, make another $1.5 million from Penn State, and you get a good job, and you're going to be coaching a really good defense, most talented defense he's probably ever coached. So his connections from the South we talked about last week. He was Ole Miss's defensive coordinator, and he has some connections to Florida as well as the Midwest, naturally from being Indiana's head coach. So yeah, I think overall I do like the hire. And as far as signing day, there were no surprises, just like we anticipated. Everybody signed, everybody sent their stuff in. I think Penn State, they may be looking to add a couple more, one or two more. I'm not sure if those names are public yet or if they're still behind a paywall, but they are still shopping around, which is to be expected.
Yeah, the only maybe surprise was offensive lineman Alan Herron, who was the shorter university transfer, backed out of his transfer and ended up at Maryland. So that's a little bit of a surprise there. Penn State's back down to just a single transfer portal addition in kicker Chase Meyer from Tulsa. So back into the offensive line hunt, still in the wide receiver hunt, although Blaise Alexander thinks that Julian Fleming will be a part of the Penn State program here in the near future, unless there's a Blaise Alexander somewhere else that I'm not aware of. But Penn State still, has some work left to be done there. I'll just remind everybody, I feel like everyone's freaking out about the transfer portal, but just a friendly reminder that wide receiver Devin Carter, he didn't originally commit to Penn State in the transfer portal until the night of the Rose Bowl. So really, the transfer portal conversation is just starting, not slowing down. And I think you'll see it pick up even more once Penn State knows exactly where they stand with some of their receivers. There's really no reason for any of the Penn State wide receivers to bail out of the Peach Bowl without playing in it or potentially playing in it. So I think you'll have a better idea where the numbers lie and who's really committed to the program after the Peach Bowl. So expect things to change a little bit more. Expect maybe Penn State to get a little bit more aggressive starting after the Peach Bowl.
Yeah, and I mean, it is disappointing that we haven't got anybody yet at receiver. I think Fleming's coming. I do. And there may not even be, and Franklin actually touched on this, I think in the Peach Bowl media day in Happy Valley. He talked about some guys coming back to school and they don't need a fancy announcement. Well, it might be the same thing with the transfer portal commitment. Julian Fleming has been around a long time. And maybe as a 23, 24-year-old, he's like, I don't need to make a big fancy post about how I'm coming to Penn State. He might just show up at Penn State as a student and just be like, yeah, I'm here. Like, I could totally see him taking a low-key approach like that. And as time goes on, I'm starting to think that's most likely to happen because I do think he's coming. But then, we missed out on Colby Young, who I really thought there was a good chance he was going to come here. But he's going to Georgia, I believe. Andre Green will not be coming here either. So it's just disappointing that we haven't brought in anybody. But as you said, this window's not closed yet. And then another window opens in the spring. But as I said a month ago, and I continue to stand by this, I do not want the only transfer addition to be Julian Fleming and then we just call it quits. And I don't think it will be either. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to add another name that came out, I believe it was yesterday, was Georgia cornerback Daniel Harris. Don't know if Penn State's involved with him, but it was down to Penn State and Georgia when he originally committed. So maybe a name to keep an eye on there. Penn State really, really wanted Daniel Harris originally. And so I can only imagine You ask Penn State about who they like to go after in the portal. It's guys that they've had some sort of relationship before, and that's somebody that kind of fits that mold. So just another name that just popped in there that maybe you should keep an eye on.
Yeah, he's a Florida kid, so they're going to try to get him up north. Could be a challenge. We'll have to see. And yeah, Penn State was heavily involved, and I do want a corner out of this transfer portal, especially with I don't know if we talked about this last week or not, but Daquan Hardy's definitely going pro now. Although Kalen King, it looks like Kalen King's actually playing in the Peach Bowl, which didn't look like it was going to happen till today. But I'm assuming he's going to be leaving as well. And Terry Smith kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit and said 3 of our guys are going. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of new faces in the cornerback room. Thankfully, I do think it's a talented group, but I would like somebody a little more established to come in as well and compete.
Yeah, let's just go right into it, because I think this is probably the biggest chunk of what's going on with the bowl games now. Is if you maybe took off the last 2 weeks from Penn State football and you're just now coming back and you don't know who's here and who's not here, was going to just run through it really quickly. And some are newer names than others. So you mentioned Kalen King. He is practicing with the team. James Franklin said today that there's really no reason for anybody to opt out, because they'll let you basically do whatever you want. You just want to come with the team, practice, hang out, be with them, suit up with them one more time. It sounds like Penn State's going to let you do that even if you don't want to play. Kalen King off to the NFL. Caden Wallace, offensive tackle, will play, going to the NFL. Offensive tackle, Olu Fashanu, practicing with the team. We actually have a fan question on that, so I'm not going to go much into Olu right now, but he's going to the NFL too. Linebacker Curtis Jacobs will play, going to the NFL. You mentioned Daquan Hardy, defensive back Daquan Hardy will play, going to the NFL. Tight end Theo Johnson will play, but he's going to go to the NFL. And then tight end Tyler Warren, he's going to be playing in the Peach Bowl, and he's also decided to return for his, senior year. Cornerback Johnny Dixon. I have not officially heard if he's opting out, but it basically sounds like he's opting out for the Peach Bowl, and will not be playing in the Peach Bowl, obviously heading to the NFL. Chop Robinson opted out of the Peach Bowl, heading to the NFL. Adisa Isaac will play in the Peach Bowl, but he's heading to the NFL as well. Did I miss anybody from Penn State side, Shawn?
I don't believe so. I think you hit on everybody. Keandre Lambert-Smith, no update. We don't know what's going on with KLS. But yeah, I think he's the only one that we don't have a good read on right now. I think everybody else, we have Devon Ellies as well. I'm not sure. We don't know what Devon's going to be doing quite yet either.
Yeah, I've seen KLS at practice, but that's all for sure. Ole Miss, not nearly as many opt-outs. Only one official opt-out. Defensive end Cedric Johnson. He had 5.5 sacks, which was tied for the team lead there, 40 tackles. They'll miss him quite a bit. Ole Miss's right tackle was injured, didn't play against Georgia in Micah Pettis. I don't think you'll see him in the Peach Bowl. He has already said he's coming back next year, but I don't expect for you to see the right tackle play against Penn State. Just want to make 2 notes. Well, 3 notes. One other note, their backup quarterback, Spencer Sanders, former Oklahoma State quarterback, he is deemed ineligible. So he will not be playing in the Peach Bowl. So if anything happens to their quarterback, Jackson Dart, they'll be without their backup and Spencer Sanders. They've had a couple guys enter the portal on Ole Miss side, a decent amount actually. Like I think it was technically 13 for Ole Miss, but they've also hit the portal really hard. They've probably had the best portal incoming class right now for 2024. Kind of makes me feel good that we're playing them now and not potentially in September. But it's hard to obviously really calibrate what the additions mean, but they've picked up some big ones. So kind of glad that Penn State's missing out on playing them after those guys are able to get settled into the program. Anything that you wanted to add to that, Shawn?
Yeah, I agree with you because every day it looks like, oh, Ole Miss is getting another guy and Ole Miss is getting another guy. So thankfully, it's not like the NFL where you sign guys off of waivers or make some trades at the deadline and they could immediately start playing. But yeah, this is a talented group, highly explosive offense, a decent defense, but it's kind of a mirror of Penn State in a way. And you know how a mirror you could see yourself, but the shape could be different. The shape could be misleading. And your right hand looks like your left hand. Your left hand looks like your right hand. That's kind of what I see with Ole Miss, being that Penn State, great defense. Offense is all right. When they're playing well, they're playing well. But it's a similar story to Ole Miss, I think.
Yeah, and before we get into that and really start breaking down Ole Miss, Lee mentioned Evan Stewart from A&M. Is there anything to report there that Penn State could maybe dream and snag him?
I'm not sure.
Okay. No update on Evan Stewart, Lee. I don't really know how cold or hot things are in the transfer portal right now, but it maybe just because it's game week now and the team's officially in Atlanta, but I feel like all the focus is now on football again, at least for now.
Ole Miss, 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 Ole
Right.
Miss. I don't know.
Right, exactly. Okay, so we talked about who's playing and who's not playing. I then wanted to talk about who's coaching and who's not coaching. So Manny Diaz, defensive coordinator, went to Duke. He's gone. Saw he's already got to shoot some basketballs over there for Duke and whatnot. Penn State brings in Tom Allen. Tom Allen's not going to be the defensive coordinator for the game. Anthony Poindexter and analyst Rob Smith will call the plays. Poindexter called the plays for after Pry left. Was that for the Outback Bowl?
Yes. Yes,
So
he called it then, and then he called plays at UConn as well.
So we'll have some familiarity there. Lane Kiffin today said that not just with defensive coordinator, but both of them. He said it's kind of difficult because they don't really exactly know how to prepare both for the defense and the offense as things are changed a little bit. I will say they at least have some film of what Ty Howell and Jaywan Sider have been able to do on the offensive end. Kotelnicki will not be calling the plays. He replaced Mike Yursich. Jaywan Sider, Ty Howell will be calling plays. They've been calling plays the last 2 games now. 1 game? 2 games.
Rutgers.
Yeah, that's right. And so have some familiarity there. Seems like they have a pretty good system for how they want to do things. So I'm not too worried as far as blaming it on the lack of consistent play calling. I think they'll be fine there. But that's what you should expect. No changes at special teams with Stacey Collins. We do know that the quarterbacks, it seems like it's kind of a group effort right now as far as who's kind of coaching the quarterbacks. Danny O'Brien obviously playing a large role there as well. So that's kind of the latest of the coaches, Shawn.
Yeah, as expected, the Kotelnicki, Allen, they're not going to be calling any plays or anything. And that's typically how it goes. That's how it was with the Manny when he first got here in the Outback Bowl, and Joe Moorhead as well in the Tax Slayer Bowl. Almost forgot the name of that. Back
Played Georgia in that
last game pre-Kirby. So that's generally how Penn State likes to do things, and that's how they will be doing them. I feel bad about this, but I had no idea who Rob Smith was until he was named co-defensive coordinator. And maybe I should, but just name didn't ring a bell.
No, it kind of came out of left field a little bit for me too.
Yeah, I didn't know if I was like a bad fan or if I should resign my spot at Hardcore Penn State Football, but I just never heard of the guy.
You can let Thomas Mooley come in here and tell us how to do things.
Maybe Thomas could be the new defensive coordinator.
Probably.
And Poindexter's going to get another shot. And you do wonder how long he will, that this is, I don't really consider it being passed over 2-3 years ago, but like you could kind of consider it now that it was done twice. And you do wonder how long he'll stick around. But as of right now, he's going to be the he's probably going to keep that defensive coordinator role. So yeah, this and I think what Lane Kiffin said was interesting too, that you don't really know what to expect because so much of coaching and scouting and getting ready for a team is figuring out tendencies. And when you have a month to prepare, you're going to figure out tendencies of the coaches that you're getting ready that you're preparing for. And it's going to be literally impossible to figure out Anthony Poindexter's tendencies. And there are going to be very, very few tendencies to figure out when it comes to Ty Howell and Jaywan Sider, especially because they were never in super close games before. And this could be a super close game.
Yeah. I mean, they have their hands full. There's no doubt about it. And I always say, like, the offenses have a little bit of an advantage coming out of the bowl practices just because you haven't gone live nearly as much. You might have some lethargy that you're kind of trying to scrape off and loosen up a little bit. So I think that helps Penn State's offense a little bit. And I don't think Penn State's defense is going to necessarily see that much of a setback. People have mentioned that Chop Robinson's not playing. Got it. There's a lot of other guys on that roster that have done exceptionally well, especially at that position. And again, Penn State was out Chop Robinson and for both Ohio State and Michigan. So they've been able to survive without him for some quarters at a time. I think they'll be okay in that regard. Anything you want to add before we start really looking at this Ole Miss team?
Yeah, I agree with you on Chop. Same thing with Johnny Dixon, really. I do think Cam Miller is going to be ready to step up into that number 2 role. And I was a little concerned about him going into the year, but every time we've called upon him, he stepped up. So I'm not saying he's going to be, Johnny at his senior year. I'm not saying like he'll be able to match a senior's production, but I do think we'll be all right. And same thing with edge. If there's one position we could really afford to lose somebody at, and I know how important Chop is, but it's edge. And that's because we have Deni Dennis-Sutton right there. So I don't think it's going to be all that tough of a transition, and we still have a great defense, like a fantastic defense without those 2 guys.
Yeah, you mentioned Cam Miller. I just want to throw out there O'Davian Collins as well, a guy who hasn't really been a chance to get on the field very much. I think it's a big game for him. He's going to have to play a lot more than he has been. Really, the most notable thing he's done has not been a good thing, and he had that blocking the back or clipping call on the Keaton Ellis pick 6 that was then brought back. That was probably the biggest play he's been a part of. He's done a couple other nice things, but this is a big game for O'Davian Collins, a transfer from Mississippi State.
Yeah, Zion Tracy too.
Yeah,
that's a guy that Dylan talked about a little bit last week. That's going to be a good player here. It's just he hasn't had those opportunities because he's behind 2 guys that have chances to be drafted in the first 2 rounds next year.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Ole Miss a little bit. In a way, Ole Miss is very similar, but also very different from Penn State. They've lost the 2 most important games on their schedule, just like Penn State, but they've also shown some really good things along the way. They lost to Alabama. They lost to Georgia. They did beat in a duel the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels, and LSU. They have had some really good moments, but some also head-scratching ones. A close game at A&M, closer-ish game to Arkansas. Just not necessarily always putting it together. In my opinion, it's really because the defense isn't anything special. Their offense, basically top 25 in almost all categories. They're going to try to play with a quick tempo. Jackson Dart has the ability to run and throw. He was a little banged up. Is he finally back to 100%? Quinshon Judkins, the running back, is one of the best tailbacks in the country, in my opinion. I think he's a really solid guy. Over 1,000 yards, over 16 total touchdowns. I think he's really the catalyst to this entire offense. But this offense is going to try to go quick, get the ball out fast. And to me, it's never been more important for Penn State to prevent that first down. If they can if they can prevent that first down, that's really going to hurt Ole Miss's momentum. Even on the drives where Ole Miss has to punt, if they get a couple first downs, I think that's going to do a lot for their confidence and their momentum in the game. Penn State's really got to find a way to get them off the field when they have their opportunities to do so. And Shawn, I was just looking at the numbers. There's a couple of things that really scare me if I'm Ole Miss. Number one, they are 106th in tackles for loss allowed. They've given up 82 TFLs. Penn State is 5th in the nation at tackles for loss. They have 101 tackles for loss on the season. So to me, that's just a great example. How do you slow down that tempo a little bit? Well, tackles for loss, getting them off schedule. Ole Miss is allowing a lot, and Penn State is taking a lot. Ole Miss, for as good as their offense has been, 85th in the country on third down conversions. So they haven't been special as far as converting third downs, 37%. Penn State's 9th best in the country on third down conversions allowed at 29%. So again, not allowing that first down, getting off the field is going to be a huge role for Penn State. And I think keeping them off schedule, it plays into that a little bit. And I think the TFLs that Ole Miss has allowed this year plays into that already, even before facing a Penn State defense. So the last thing I'll just say is kind of ties into TFLs quite a bit, Shawn. Sacks. Ole Miss has allowed 75, is the 75th in sacks allowed. They've allowed 26 sacks. Penn State, as you know, Shawn, 48 sacks on the year, leads the country. They are 2 away from my bold prediction. That will not be my bold prediction tonight. I'm just going to say I think Penn State does indeed get to 50 sacks on the season. This is a good Ole Miss offense. I don't want to confuse anybody. Jackson Dart, I think, is a really special quarterback. He might be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC that's coming back, or at least close to it. Junkins is a really good running back. Trey Harris, the receiver, 850 yards, 8 touchdowns, really good receiver. But are they going to be able to be consistent enough as far as staying on schedule to beat a really good defense? I'm not really sure, Shawn. And it's going to be a fun, I don't think anyone's really looking forward to the Penn State offense versus Ole Miss defense. I think everyone's excited about watching this Penn State defense versus Ole Miss offense.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good way to put it. Dart was a highly decorated recruit. First went to USC, then transferred down to Ole Miss when a guy named Caleb Williams came to Los Angeles. And Dart's been really good both years, and that's under Lane Kiffin's tutelage. That's what he's known for, coaching up quarterbacks, having an explosive offense, and that's what Ole Miss has. I agree with you. When Ole Miss is playing at their best, it's when Judkins is able to go and run the ball, and he has over 1,000 yards this year. I believe in 5 of his last 8 games or so that he's had over 100 yards rushing. So he's playing good ball right now. They had 3 guys that had over 700 yards receiving as well. So it's not like their whole offense is dependent on 1 or 2 guys. They spread the ball around. They attack you from a bunch of different spots. Lane Kiffin keeps things, tends to keep defenses guessing. But yeah, in the end, what I think it will come down to is, are they going to be able to hold up against our defensive line? Plus Abdul Carter, plus Curtis Jacobs, plus Kobe King, coming at them and bringing a lot at them and trying to disrupt that timing. As you mentioned, they're a tempo team. And with tempo, tempo is great when it's good. And you're moving the ball, you're picking up 6 yards at a time, you're keeping the defense on their heels. But it's the hardest thing about it is starting and getting started. And if you go back to pass, you throw a bubble screen, you lose 3 yards, that really puts you in a bind. So I think that's going to be what Ole Miss is going to try to avoid against Penn State, but it's easier said than done. Penn State is one of the best teams in the country, if not the best team, in creating tackles for loss, and they lead the country in sacks. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, and I'm curious to see, just how Lane Kiffin attacks us or tries to attack us, and how Anthony Poindexter responds, because a lot of what Manny brought was being able to have a feel for the game and know when to call the right blitz and know when to back out of it and bluff. And is Anthony Poindexter going to have that same feel, especially against an extremely experienced play caller like or offensive mind like Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, I think that's the game right there, right? It's is who's going to call it correctly, and it's easier said than done for both teams. I do think Ole Miss, if you watch Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin versus Alabama, and then you put on Ole Miss versus LSU, like there's a difference. Like I think Lane Kiffin does get in his head sometimes and overthinks things when he's going up against maybe equal talent or maybe better talent. So I'd be curious to see how Lane Kiffin plays this one, how loose he actually feels. Sometimes he gets away from the run. Sometimes he doesn't just run it when he can. And I think that's where Judkins is going to be a huge spotlight player to watch in this one, because if he can get going, that really alleviates pressure for Jackson Dart, but also for play calling for Lane Kiffin. And how many times did we see Michigan, even Rutgers, say, hey, 3rd and long against Penn State, we're just going to run it anyway. Like, if we don't get it, we'll punt, but we are not going to set up Penn State for an opportunity for a explosive play, a turnover. We're just not going to play that game. We will be willing to concede. We might even pick it up depending on what they come with the blitz, but we're just going to run it and live for another day. I'd be curious if Lane Kiffin, who I think maybe his pride gets in the way sometime of his play calling, will he be willing to run a dive up the middle on 3rd and 8 with a 20% chance that he picks up the first down? Or is he going to step back and throw the football in obvious passing situations and see if Penn State's defense can get after his guys, which I think would be the wrong thing to do. But I think Lane Kiffin maybe will roll those dice more than, say, a Greg Schiano would, or a Kirk Shiraka would, or even a Sharon Moore would. So just feel like his style, his gunslinger mentality could pay off for them, but also could exactly kind of feed the beast, which is the Penn State defense and the turnover machine that it kind of lives on.
Yeah, I think a lot of times with these mad scientists, Lane Kiffin, my guy Mike McDaniel, sometimes they try to show everybody how big their cojones are, and it gets in the way of winning, and it becomes sometimes infuriating to watch them. Ryan Day does this as well. Brilliant play designers, but sometimes they want to show everybody how smart they are, and look, I could do this and I could do that, where it's like, just run the ball, dude. Like if Sharon Moore kept sending JJ McCarthy back to pass, we might have won the game. We might have been able to beat Michigan, but it was smart to take a more conservative approach, and maybe Ole Miss could try to learn from that. Now, I don't think they have the offensive line to do what Michigan did. They're going to need to be able to make throws, but still, I think they should, if they're smart, stay committed to the run, because if you just keep sending Jackson Dart back to pass, 40 times, that ain't a recipe for winning, and that's exactly what Penn State will want you to do.
Yeah, that's a good transition over to Ole Miss defense too, because why Michigan was able to do that was they could go 3 and out and put their defense on the field and dare Penn State to win. Ole Miss doesn't necessarily have that luxury. Ole Miss defense, I think Lee here in the comments put some notes in there, said that Ole Miss defense is ranked 60th or worse in almost every defensive category. So they're struggling. Now, granted, Jackson Dart, he has dropped his interceptions from last year to this year. I think from like 11 to 5. So he's taking care of the football a lot better this year. But that defense is not a defense that that can maybe rely on as much as say some of the teams that Penn State's faced this year. It's not a good defense. It is a beatable defense, and it's one that you would hope that Penn State, with a month and a half to prepare, would be able to take advantage of them. They're healthy. Obviously, the biggest question mark is going to be, we just talked a little bit about how Ole Miss's defensive end, Cedric Johnson's has opted out, but they still got some good players. Jared Ivey, the defensive end, also had 5.5 sacks this year. Penn State's going to be without 2 offensive tackles. That's got to be really, when we talk about Penn State's offense versus Ole Miss defense, how do the offensive tackles hold up? Does Olu play a little bit? We'll talk about that in a second. But regardless, Olu's not going to play most of the game. Kane Wallace is going to play, but is he going to play the entire game? Like, we don't know how much these guys are going to play, and how much you're going to be relying upon Drew Shelton's and others to potentially fill in. Do you move JV Nelson out to right tackle a little bit too? You can start getting reps there. I don't know what you do. So that's, to me, the most interesting kind of battle here is Penn State's offensive line, and can they hold up just enough in the pass game to let Drew Aller do enough to rip apart this defense? And again, they don't have to do it every possession, but I think Penn State's defense is going to give Ole Miss offense, they're going to hold them enough times for Penn State's offense to succeed. And if I had to guess, like, Shawn, if I had to say, like, if I had to put money on which one I think is going to break through, given Ole Miss's offense or Penn State's offense and who they're going against, I think I feel better about Penn State's offense breaking through Ole Miss's defense than I do Ole Miss's offense breaking through Penn State's defense.
I understand why you say that. I just don't trust our offense a whole lot. But I get why you're saying that, because our defense is so good. And I think, like, if Ole Miss was in the Big Ten, like, defenses that are better than them that we play, Ohio State, Michigan, obviously, Iowa, Rutgers. Yeah, so 4. And we had success against Iowa. We had some success against Rutgers as well. And so we've played tougher defenses than them before, with mixed results. But I think there's a decent gap between Ole Miss and Rutgers as far as their defense goes. So I could definitely see why you say that. I do worry about slow starts. Like, I don't want this to be a game where Ole Miss gets up 10-0 on us. And is that a possibility I could see? Yeah, because Ole Miss does have a good offense, and Penn State gets off to slow starts. They do it almost every week. It's a slow start. Even against Michigan State, where we played really, really well, it was still a slow start. So if there's ever a week to start fast, it's this week. And I hear you too on Olu, because Olu, like we said, car insurance, we might really see how valuable having an elite left tackle is. And I think Drew Shelton, I don't know exactly, and we're going to get in, we have a fan question about that. But you might see a lot of Drew Shelton. And then if Caden Wallace is on the Olu Fashanu plan, who's the other tackle going to be? Is it just going to be Drew Shelton switching between left and right? Like, you really don't know. But I don't know who that other tackle is. I have no idea what we do there. So that's a little scary to think about. And it's really something I didn't think about until Cory brought it up. So thank you for scaring me, Cory.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest question mark.
Harrison Wallace might play as well, so watch out for that.
Yeah. Like and I guess you hope that Caden Wallace plays the whole game. Like that's the easiest answer. Just don't know if that's really, on the table or not. You mentioned defenses that Penn State's played in relation to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is actually statistically a little bit worse than even Maryland's defense. Now, Maryland's defense in previous years was pretty awful. This year they were a better defense than they had been. Obviously, Penn State had one of their best games against Maryland, so that probably doesn't make anyone think that Ole Miss's defense is as bad as Maryland's defense. But honestly, I'd put them relatively on the same level. Like they're relatively. Ole Miss is probably a little bit better, but they're relatively on the same level. It was really more of a scheme as far as what Maryland was doing that was just an awful idea. And I'd be curious to see what Ole Miss is willing to do. Are they going to play back with two high safeties? Are they going to challenge Drew Aller? Are they going to stack the box and not let the running game get going? There's a lot of different ways to play it. We've seen teams have the most success against Penn State by playing off of the receivers and giving them the underneath things and just daring Drew Aller to be able to consistently deliver the football to them. When you play press man coverage all the time with little help over the top, we have seen Penn State have success in getting their one-on-ones and taking advantage of those opportunities. But we'll just have to kind of wait and see how Ole Miss decides to do it. I really think a lot of that's going to depend on how the game goes. I think Ole Miss might get more conservative if they get a lead, right? Hey, we're not going to give up the big play. Can Penn State drive down the field methodically and beat us over and over again? And if they're having success on their offensive side of things, Shawn, they might just say straight up, we will score faster than you will score, and probably more consistently. If they get to that point, Penn State's in trouble. That means the defense hasn't been able to do. That's not what you want this game to be if you're Penn State. If this turns into a shootout, Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin are very comfortable in shootouts. That's not exactly the battle you want to fight.
Yeah, and that's gonna be how they try to make this game. They were able to outduel the Heisman Trophy winner, so that shows you just how comfortable they'd be in this. And then when you look at some of these games, they've given up a lot of points. They gave up 35 to A&M in a win, 49 to LSU, 52 to Georgia. So they are gettable. So we definitely could have a chance to get after them. But it's easier said than done. And like you said, I think we have to kind of stick to what we do best, and that's being a trying to be a ball control offense, chew up clock, get the athletes, get your best athletes the ball in their hands in advantageous situations, control clock, get after the quarterback, and go from there. And I think if we stick to that recipe, we're going to win this game because Penn State is the more talented team. I think Penn State on their best day is a better team than Ole Miss. So I think that's how we have to attack it.
Yeah. If I'm Ole Miss, the thing that makes me most nervous is when you have a leaky defense, it kind of evens the playing field a little bit. Doesn't matter what you can do on offense. If you can't stop a nosebleed, there's almost more pressure on your offense to then succeed. The offense for Penn State really doesn't have any sort of pressure on them. Like nobody's expecting their offense to do very much. Like everyone knows it's going to come down to can Penn State's defense slow down Jackson Dart and company. Everything you get from the Penn State offense is kind of gravy. And you would expect them to do some good things against this Ole Miss defense, but I don't know if anybody has high expectations or what to expect. Again, especially given that offensive tackle situation. I will say this, though, Shawn. I'm really expecting them to have a lot more success running the football just because what we've seen the last two games as far as them committing to outside zone runs. and getting their guys in favorable positions to succeed, whether that's Katron Allen up the gut, whether that's Nick Singleton out in space, whether that's just Omari Evans playing. I really think we've seen some things that encourage me as far as Penn State going up against this Ole Miss defense.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a lot better about it after watching, especially the Michigan State game, just the way we moved the ball, because I think that's the way everybody thought the offense would look, and it just hadn't looked like that all year. So I definitely think there was some good momentum to build off of too, going into bowl prep, and everybody feeling pretty good about themselves for the most part on offense, including the coaches. So yeah, there's a lot to, I think, really like about this matchup for Penn State. And I'm not saying it's going to be an easy game or they won't present a challenge, because I think they will. Like, Ole Miss is going to make some plays. Jackson Dart's he's going to make some plays, and it's just it's going to be on Penn State's offense to be able to answer. And this is a gettable defense. And we're all familiar with the old adage, and I still think in 2023 it's true. Defense wins championships, and if Ole Miss had a championship caliber defense, they might be in the college football playoff right now. Like, they do have a very good offense. They just have an incomplete team, and that's why they're playing us, because we also have an incomplete team.
Right. Yeah, you put Ole Miss's offense with Penn State's defense, they probably win a national championship. I want to mention a couple other things on his defense. Safety Trey Washington, 75 tackles, 3 interceptions. Leads the team with 3 interceptions. I think there's someone else on our team that also has 3. Not a bunch of interceptions for this Ole Miss defense. I saw something kind of interesting. Their corners only have 3 interceptions combined this year. So I think you might have an opportunity here from just a statistical standpoint that you can maybe take some shots and maybe not have to worry about it being picked off. You might not complete them, but maybe you do throw those Corey Geiger deep shots down the field, and you give those guys a chance to go up there and get it, because their cornerbacks, not that they necessarily have been bad, but they're not good. They also haven't taken the ball away very much. Their safeties have a lot more interceptions, which is typical, but still, I'm not awfully terrified of the Ole Miss defensive backs. That's all I wanted to say for right now. There's a fan question about one other thing about Ole Miss scouting-wise I want to save. But do you have anything else you want to add about the Ole Miss defense?
No, I think we're good here.
All righty. I just wanted to add to see if I can pull this puppy up here. Just for those at home that care about special teams, I just wanted to add that. Can I find? Where's your care? Oh, there it is. Caden Davis was 42 for 42 on extra points, 15 of 20 from field goals, long of 56. And then Caden Costa also played, and he was 6 for 6 on extra points, 1 field goal made. So pretty good from a kicking perspective there. If you were needed some thoughts on the place kicking situation, wanted to add Penn State. Obviously, Riley Thompson, the punter, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but just wanted to reiterate that he has his eligibility extended for 2 more years. So I just wanted to mention that one more time, since you guys might not have watched that episode.
Hashtag for the what's McAfee's thing? For the brand.
For the brand. You want to go to some fan questions, Shawn?
Let's talk to our fans, the people that keep us in business.
Yes, Jim Peck asked for some Atlanta restaurant recommendations. His Twitter handle is Jim It Thing In. If you guys want to DM him and send him some Atlanta restaurant recommendations. I did not go to Atlanta very much, so don't have much to add to that. Sweetwater Brewery's on the one side of town there. That's pretty solid. I went to this bar one time in Atlanta. It was kind of a cool scene there, and I forgot my credit card, so don't have a lot of great experiences from dining out. I went to a couple places when I was down there for the college football award show in 2018, but I couldn't tell you any of the bars that we went to. Don't really remember very much from those evenings, but they were good times. I can tell you that. But yeah, no, I don't really have much for you as far as that. But Atlanta's a cool city if you have a chance to get out there, and it's affordable from the standpoint of going to view football games and all sporting events. I was able to go to a Atlanta Hawks game, and it was like insanely cheap for concessions and also booze. So take advantage of that. And it's cool to hang out right around there in Olympic Square?
Yeah.
It's nice around there. There's some good food to eat around there. There's actually a really good pizza place, but I wouldn't be able to tell you the name of that either. But yeah, if you're there, I would check out the College Football Hall of Fame. It's really well done there. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I have been to Atlanta a few different times. I have family that lives about 30 minutes away from Atlanta. So
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Where do they live?
They live in a town called Dallas, Georgia. It's in Paulding County. So it's about 30 minutes away. And I had been to Braves games before at the old Turner Field. They have a new field now down there. That the Georgia Dome was actually still up last time I was there. So I haven't been to Mercedes-Benz Stadium or anything like that. They have an awesome aquarium too, I do know. So as far as any restaurants, I don't remember, to be completely honest with you. I know my family says don't get the pizza, don't get the wings. Unless you're at a chain like Buffalo Wild Wings, that they're probably the best you're going to find. And Pizza Hut is probably the best pizza you're going to find. So if you're going down there, don't get the pizza, don't get the wings.
Fair enough. I've never been to Dallas, Georgia.
Yeah.
I see where it is, but I've never been anywhere near there before.
Yeah, like I said, it's a little town. Nice area though. We drove down there before. Now I know for Corey, he's driven all over the country, so 13-hour ride, nothing to him. But
they still stink. They don't get any better. It doesn't matter how many times.
It doesn't matter how many times.
No, not at all. All right, let's go to a fan question here from Smordane. He says, "How much does Olu play?" And honestly, Shawn, originally I was just going to come back with this question and say I don't think he plays at all. But he has been practicing. Gosh, I still am in the camp of I don't see him playing, and he's just there to be with his team and suit up. But I read some comments people had, and it sounds like maybe he does play a smidgen, Shawn. I really don't think he's going to, but I guess I can still be convinced. Where are you at with Olu?
I think he's going to play. And I say that because he wouldn't be practicing if he wasn't going to play. And I don't think he's going to play like you've seen him all season. Think back to Saquon versus Washington, where Saquon still played. He still made an impact. He saw that long run in the Fiesta Bowl. But I think at best he'll be splitting snaps, and Drew Shelton will probably get the majority of the snaps, the lion's share, if you will.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel yet, but I believe you.
Thanks, man. Somebody does.
Yeah. Shawn asks, will Cory bet his beard on a Penn State victory? I guess the beard has to go. I've been management called down and wants the beard shaved, and I don't know. I don't know if just the when I did those other video edits, just the camera angle didn't help me out at all, but I feel like on the podcast it looks pretty solid. But
I
What
like
do
it.
I know, Sean?
I like it. I was just wondering.
Whatever. Honestly, we have a little thing on Saturday, actually, day of the game, and might need to clean it up a little bit for that. So we'll see.
What are you
We'll
doing
see.
Saturday?
We just got a little family thing going on.
I have my 10-year class reunion on Saturday night.
That's a crazy night to have it. I feel like that's like, I don't know, maybe from around there it's not as big of a deal, but like if I had to try to travel all the way back up to Alaska for a class reunion in between Christmas and New Year's, I feel like that's just a bad time. But I guess maybe everyone's mostly around the area.
That's the logic. The class president is actually a pretty good friend of mine, and he called me, and he was because I was the class secretary, and the other two class officers really have nothing to do with anything. So
Sounds
we
about
were
right.
kind of the ones that put it together, especially Corey, but my other friend Corey.
Because I didn't
Um,
do anything.
You did not. You were unavailable for comment. But the rationale was number one, we kind of put it off. And then number two, we were like or not everybody, but a lot of people will be around for the holidays. So should be fun. So anybody Holy Cross class 2013, if you're listening, come to the reunion.
Yeah. Or if not, let's just get everyone that listens to the show to show up there.
Yeah, Holy Cross High School, Dunmore, PA. We have a good basketball team.
Nice.
Terrible at football.
All right. This next question from DJ Bennett. Which players on offense and defense should Penn
the team in led the team in sacks this year. Tied for the team in sacks this year. So I think he's going to test our tackles, especially if we're playing some new guys at tackle. So I think being able to keep Drew comfortable and keep him upright is going to be a huge thing in this game.
All righty. Well, let's go to his second part of the question. Which bowl game are you most looking forward to besides the Penn State and playoff games? Sean, besides the Penn State game and the playoff games, I was probably, and this is probably not the case for everybody, but I'm really looking forward to two other games. The Citrus Bowl between Iowa and Tennessee, because I'm just fascinated by chaos, and I think that could be a really interesting one, especially since Tennessee, is favored by 7.5. I think that's a little bit high. So I'm curious about that game. And I'm also curious by the Rutgers-Miami game in the Pinstripe Bowl. I just think that's a game where Rutgers is favored now, but a lot of people are probably sleeping on Rutgers. People still think this is like a really bad Rutgers team. And I don't know. I'm just really excited to see. I think Rutgers could honestly take it to Miami.
Yeah, I would probably take Rutgers to beat them. I would say Ohio State, Missouri. I think Coach Drink is very fascinating at Missouri. Interesting guy, very outspoken. And you have Ohio State. I don't know who Ohio State's I guess it's going to be Devin Brown. Is Marvin Harrison Jr. opting out, or is he?
I don't know if it's official yet. What he's doing.
Yeah, so I don't know if he's playing or not. I guess the $20 million NIL deal, I guess that check didn't cash. So he will be declaring for the draft in all likelihood. And yeah, I'm kind of interested to see that one. I think purely from I I'd like to see Ohio State lose, and I am not. I think only. Don't take this the wrong way. If you're one of these people, I think people who root for the conference, I think they need their heads examined if they root for the conference in bowl games. I never have. I don't get it. I don't understand how it benefits Penn State at all if Ohio State beats Missouri or Michigan wins a national championship. Nobody's ever explained that to me, why we have to root for the conference. So I actually root against the Big Ten.
Yeah, I was rooting for Minnesota to win tonight, but
yeah,
I was rooting for Northwestern.
Yeah, I guess smaller teams like that, but like if Michigan wins a national championship, that's very bad for Penn State. Like that does not help us.
Right. Yeah, I'm not rooting for I'll root for Wisconsin to beat LSU because I think that'd be funny because I don't think it's going to happen.
We always root against Brian Kelly, so that's
true. That's a good point. And I'll honestly, I don't know. I don't guess I'm not rooting for anybody in the Iowa-Tennessee game. It's just hard to root for anybody for that. But yeah, I would love to see Missouri beat Ohio State, and obviously I'm rooting for Alabama to beat Michigan. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not practicing at the Cotton Bowl, so take that for what you will. That line has gone up and down and changed quite a bit, if you're curious.
Maybe he doesn't need to practice.
He doesn't. That's true. That's true. All right, we have. Let's see here. All right, one more question. Dorito Bandit asks, what younger player has a breakout day for the Nittany Lions? Shawn, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'll go to Dennis Sutton. I feel like a lot of people don't know who he is still because Chop's there, because Adisa Isaac's there. And I think he's going to make an impact. And he might just be part of my game preview. So stay tuned. Or my bowl prediction.
Interesting. Young player, I will just stick with O'Davian Collins because why not? Someone's got to step up in the cornerback room. I'll go with O'Davian Collins, kind of being a guy who has a big day.
Cool with me.
Lee says root for the conference because the perception of the conference nationally is terrible. Yeah, but that perception, in my opinion, isn't going to change no matter what.
Yeah. And if it's a 12-team playoff, we're going to make the playoff next year. I just don't think it matters all that much.
Lambda. At least I'm getting better at that. All right. Now that we're back, I apologize for that. I don't know why my computer's doing that lately. Every hour or so, it's doing that. But hopefully you guys can hear us. We are about to drop our bold predictions and then our score predictions. So please go ahead and drop your bold predictions and your score predictions for the Peach Bowl in the chat below or in the comments if you're watching it after the fact. Shawn, I have no idea who went last for bold predictions, but I think you should go first with your bold prediction. Okay. Should I go? Hold on a second. Let me see if I can get you the big screen here. See if we can get you on the big screen here. Kinda. Hold on a second. I think that will work. Let me throw up that. There we go. All right, Shawn. Bold prediction. Hit us with it.
All right, bold prediction. So Cory, of course, I'm kind of working off Cory's season prediction of 50 sacks. I think Denai Dennis Sutton gets us to 50 sacks by himself. I'm expecting 2 sacks from Denai Dennis Sutton on Saturday, and maybe another 1 or 2 to bring us to 4 for the game. So 2 sacks individually from Denai Dennis Sutton. We get to, we'll say 52 sacks on the season. So 4 sacks for the Nittany Lions on Saturday. And as I said, I think this is a game going to be won in the trenches. So hint, hint for my score prediction.
Yeah, so kind of interesting you said that. So just so everybody knows, again, we do not talk about these ahead of time. No idea what Shawn was going to go with. And so my bold prediction, I kid you not, Shawn, my bold prediction, Denai Dennis Sutton 2 sacks is what I had written down here, which was pretty impressive. So we're kind of in the same line of thought here. But I'm not going to back off mine because I like mine a lot. Chop Robinson not playing. I think Denai Dennis Sutton kind of has the beginning of his All-American campaign starting on Saturday. So I am going to go with Denai Dennis Sutton 2 sacks. All righty.
You are frozen.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, man. Just a normal day here in the office. All right, Shawn, let's go to you. There we go. Let's go to you for your score prediction. Again, everyone on YouTube, drop your score predictions in the chat. Curious where you guys are at. Shawn, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, you have an itch?
Had to fix my light. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So score prediction. Expecting this to be a pretty competitive game. I do. All right. We are not back yet.
Shuffle over a little bit to your right. Go ahead.
All right. So again, a lot of respect for Ole Miss. I think Lane Kiffin is a great play caller, great play designer, and I think they're going to present a challenge to Penn State. I think they're going to make some plays on offense. And, you know, if you're a team that can make plays on this offense, even without a Chop Robinson, you have to have a hell of an offense to do that, because not many teams were able to do that this year on Penn State. And they're going to present some challenges, but ultimately, I do not think it's going to be enough. I think Penn State's defense is going to make enough stops to win. I think Penn State's offense is going to be able to score enough points to win. And I have Penn State winning 24-17.
Very nice. Very, very nice. Let me shoot over to me here. Yeah, so I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a little bit more scoring than Shawn has. I think whoever gets into the 30s is going to probably be the winner. Hard to imagine the Ole Miss defense or offense putting up that amount of points. I think they'd probably have to be helped out by a turnover or two. Penn State has done a really good job of taking care of the football this year. 18th, or excuse me, plus 18 in turnover margin. Ole Miss is pretty good too. They're at plus 9. But I do think Penn State wins the turnover battle and is able to get the victory 31-24. I have Penn State winning the Peach Bowl.
I will take it.
You like that, Shawn?
I'll take it. I'll take a 1-point win.
Let me ask you this as we kind of wrap things up tonight, Shawn. I don't necessarily feel the same way I felt about the Rose Bowl. Like, I really felt like we had to win the Rose Bowl. Like, don't get me wrong, I really want them to win the Peach Bowl, but it doesn't necessarily feel the same as far as must win. I don't know why I'm feeling that way towards this game, and it just doesn't seem like this one is like embarrassing if we lose it.
I feel very similar to how I felt last season. And the reason
Okay, you do.
I do. So the reason is I do think we need to kind of show first off ourselves and show the country that, yeah, we were a really good team this year. And I think there's a perception about Penn State, and really win, lose, or draw, I don't know if it's really going to be helped. Whether, we could win 63-14. I don't know if that perception is going to be fixed of Penn State, especially James Franklin, of they can't win big games. Because they'll just say, well, Ole Miss sucks. They'll look at how they played against Georgia. Look how they played against Bama, that they suck. Of course, Penn State beat them. So I'm not saying it's going to be helped if we win, but if we lose, it'll be up. They can't even beat Lane Kiffin. So I do think it's important that we win, but this is going to sound like a Ben Jones tweet, but it's more important that we don't lose.
Oh, man. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I think beating an SEC team always helps with that sort of perception. You could honestly maybe argue for the people that live down south, a win over Ole Miss will do a lot more for you than beating, say, Utah in the Rose Bowl. So you go into Ole Miss territory, which is, in the south there, you beat an SEC team, I think you do get a little bit of respect. I think you do get a little bit of respect from the South, if you care about those kind of things.
I think Greg McElroy's eyes might fall out of his head.
Sorry, I was just hacking up a storm there. We might have some breaking news. I just want to see something real quick. Oh
boy.
Yeah.
Good or bad?
I don't know. I can't get the thing to pull up. There's a PSU Dylan bomb.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Let's see what it is here. The anticipation on the podcast for people that are listening is probably at an all-time high right now. I can't get my phone to load. The suspense. Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Was there something on Instagram?
Was it on Instagram?
Yeah.
Dude,
I
don't see anything.
Thought there was something on there.
There's something about Nick Dawkins shopping. That's the latest thing on his story. He's considered a news personality on Instagram. Very interesting.
Should we become a news personality?
I feel like a personality.
I wonder if he took something down. I thought that I saw breaking news for something.
Yeah, I don't see anything. Because he's not on Twitter, correct?
He is. He's just not as much on Twitter.
Gotcha.
Anyway. Shawn, any final thoughts on the Peach Bowl?
Think the Knicks are going to win.
Yeah.
Final thought.
This is probably...
noon game. Again.
What's that?
We were killed with noon games this year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A lot of noon games.
Not a fan. I know some of you out there love noon games. I am not. Although it benefits me because my reunion's at 6:00 at night. So this one actually benefits me a little bit.
Right. Yeah, and Penn State's played a lot of them. They should be prepared for them, which I think might go a long way.
If they aren't, there's something wrong.
So, Shawn, we won't have another podcast until the new year.
So I guess I'll see you all next year.
That was bad. Are we looking at January 3rd?
I can't even think a year ahead.
All right, I'm done with you.
Yeah, next Wednesday, everybody.
All right. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. Sorry for some technical difficulties. See if I can figure out why that's happening. But otherwise, make sure to like the video and subscribe on YouTube. And if you're listening in podcast form, make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. Thank you guys for a great year. We'll be back on January 3rd, most likely, to recap the Peach Bowl. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Have a good night, everyone.